We often look back in history and feel baffled at how horrific things were, how evil men could be, and how dehumanizing they would treat each other with slavery and sacrifice and bleh, all that. Now, another fact is that there is this idea of Yeridat Hadorot within the Jewish community because of the fact that we received the Torah. We got supercharged with a spiritual dose of, life and goodness from Shemaim, from heaven, and it has gradually worn off. And that's all part of the plan. I'm not getting to that here. But the point I want to point out is that back then, we were even more sensitive than we are today. We were holier than the horrific nations that surrounded us. But nowadays, in today's day and age, everybody's on a higher level than those horrific nations of the past, Jews and non-Jews alike. My favorite example is the Taj Mahal. It's only quite recently that it was built in human history. And did you know that when it was finished, they cut off the hands of all the slaves that built it? Back then, people thought that was deep. No building like that will ever be built again, man. Wow. Now we're like horrified. You can't cut off the hand of a slave. So what humanity has come to realize, and the key difference between us and them, is that we have understood that there's a difference between a someone and a something. And that is thanks to the slavery in Egypt and Torah and our Nefesh Elokit. We understood that from the beginning. And now we've come to understand it because the Torah has permeated all of humanity. So let me illustrate what that means. After the 10 Commandments, what was the first mitzvah given to the Jews in the desert? The mitzvah of treating our slaves properly. This mitzvah comes first because the first lesson of Torah that a human being needs to learn, and that humanity needs to learn, and we didn't have at that point, was that a human being is not a slave, is not a property or a thing, but a holy someone, not something. You have to treat them right. But wait, you might say, we had slaves. The Torah permits slavery. So isn't that just a disproof of what I just said? Not at all. Slave is just a word, and it has a horrible connotation because how the word has been used across history. The kidnapping, stealing someone, which is prohibited in the 10 Commandments, by the way, and exploiting them. That's not what the word means in the Torah. And it's a con that you've been led to believe that, because it's absolutely not true. It never was true. And it all boils down to the fact that the nations have been horrific until very recently. And so they've been using that word in a horrific way. So exploiting people and trafficking them is definitely not what the Torah is permitting or what it's regulating. And even though that's what the nations have all been doing, Am Yisrael, the further back we go in time, are more holy and more righteous than us. So what were they doing? It's impossible to imagine that they were keeping slaves like the rest of them. A Jewish father selling his daughter into exploitation for money? His daughter? Who are we talking about? We're not talking about property. We're not talking... who are we talking about? Who are we talking about? Who is she? She's someone's daughter. It's not comparable to money. Everybody knows that today, so our holy ancestors surely knew that even deeper than we do today. And don't take my word for it, or even a rabbi's word for it, any rabbi, or the Gemara. Just look at the Torah itself. Most people have not looked at the verses. So let's just give one example. The law of the Ama Ivriya, this is selling the daughter into slavery, like I was saying. So, like we said, human trafficking is exploitative, but the law of Ama Ivriya is not. Rather, it's a very merciful system to actually help vulnerable girls. It's a welfare system in the Bronze Age. Go through the facts. Firstly, it was only, factually, it was only applied in times and places where women could not take care of themselves. Nowadays, that doesn't apply, but in history, that certainly applied. Women couldn't work, and if they didn't work, they didn't have any support, they would very likely die or get sold into actual slavery. Chas v'shalom. Also, it applies only in extreme cases of poverty, i.e. when the father cannot support the daughter and thus her life is in danger. Next, the goal is ideally for her to get married to the son of the person that takes her in, or him, if the ages match. And that is, it's for her own welfare again. It's ensuring that she'll be taken care of for the rest of her life in those days. If he marries her, she's entitled to full marriage rights, not some kind of slave rights or anything like that. And very, very importantly, she cannot be forced to marry. She can say no. And then if the intent is not marriage, then she's not allowed to be turned into a slave in that sense. She has to be treated like a daughter. It says that in the Torah. She's not allowed to be mistreated or given excess work. And she can be redeemed by her father or anyone at any time, even against the master's will. And she will certainly be released at the time that the Torah says, which is at her coming of age. Now, this happens automatically when she's 12 or puberty, according to halacha, or if she's mistreated. Okay? So the basic reading of the Torah's verses, which are all in plain sight, prove that this is not a form of exploitative slavery. It's more like the world's first welfare fostering program as part of a civilization's law code. Rich foster parents, your trusted and holy righteous neighbors, paying you to look after your child and giving the option of her marrying into that wealthy family and setting her for life, if necessary, optional. It was all geared towards the girl's safety and concerns. Because again, who are we talking about? Not a piece of property, but a holy someone, a Bat Yisrael, someone's daughter. How sweet and perfect are Hashem's laws, and how perfect is their Creator who desires them, and for us to perform them for our own good. Shabbat Shalom.